Hello, I hope you're safe, happy and well no matter where you are in the world. This week I wanted to bake from one of my favorite recipe books from Laduree. It is a beautiful book with a gold binding and she is very well loved. I couldn't decide between two recipes, so I decided to bake them both. So you're getting two videos in the one. The first item that I wanted to bake is a Plaisir Gourmand, which is a gourmet delight. It's choux pastry with the bottom filled with pastry cream or lightened pastry cream, and then we have strawberries and Chantilly cream. It's really yummy, and if I open it up for you, you can kind of see that layer in. She's been sitting out for a while, she needs to go back in the fridge. But really yummy. Fun fact, I really don't like cake. I love pastries. I could eat bucket loads of pastry cream, but I won't. The next one is Mille-feuilles Framboise, which is basically like a raspberry Napoleon. It's got a layer of caramelized puff pastry, and if you can see her like that. And she's got some raspberries as well as a vanilla mousseline cream. And it's very delicate. I'm not going to pull it apart because it's too pretty to pull apart. But the pastry is very crumbly, and it's basically caramelized with a layer of icing sugar. So there's a lot that goes into both of these recipes. If you do give this a crack, let me know. The recipe will be in the comments field below. If you've got any questions, feel free to get in touch or pop them into the comments field, and happy baking, guys. Let's get baking. So we're going to start off with some happy eggs. It's 4 egg yolks, milk, sugar, a vanilla bean, some cornstarch and some butter. Grab a pot and grab your vanilla bean. What we're going to do is we're going to cut down the center of the vanilla bean, de-seed it, and put that into the pan along with the pod. Once that's done, pour your milk in and then pop it on the stove to bring to a simmer. You don't want to boil the milk, you just want to simmer it. Once it's come to the simmer, take it off the stove and cover it immediately. What we want to do is we want to let that steep for 15 minutes with the vanilla beans and the pod. You want to grab your bowl next and add your 4 egg yolks and your sugar, and you want to whisk this until it becomes a very pale colour. Add your cornstarch in and mix well. Now it's time to take out the vanilla pod from the milk. Once you've done this, take the milk back over to the stove and bring to a simmer. Once it's simmering, we want to use 1/3 of this milk mixture to pour over the egg yolk mixture because we want to temper our eggs. Once we've tempered our eggs, we want to pour that into the pan again, and we want to whisk until our custard or our pastry cream becomes thick. Once it's thickened, take it straight off the stove and put it into a bowl and let it cool for 10 minutes. Once it's cooled down, you want to add your butter in and whisk it very well until all the butter has melted and has become homogeneous. Transfer to a clean dish, cover with cling wrap and put it in the fridge to set. You should leave it in as a minimum of 30 minutes or until your show pastry is ready to fill. Now onto the show pastry. You're going to need some flour, some happy eggs, milk, water, a pinch of salt, some butter and some sugar. First up, sift your flour. Grab your pan and put your milk in. Your water, your sugar, salt, and your butter. Take that over to the stove and bring it to the boil. Once your mixtures come to the boil, you want to take it off the heat and add your flour in. You want to make sure that you mix this really well so it all comes together. Make sure that you pop it back on the heat just to draw out any more moisture and that the show pulls away from the pan. Transfer it to your bowl and allow it to cool. While it's cooling, prep your piping bag. Once your mixture is cold, you want to start adding in your eggs. Make sure that you mix them in one by one. Transfer your mixture into a piping bag and pipe mini eclairs, roughly around 3 inches long. Grab your almonds and pop them into a bag and smash them up. If you can find crushed almonds, even better. I just couldn't find any in the shops. Place your crushed almonds on top of your little eclairs and pop them into the oven. Bake for 8 minutes with the oven door closed, and once they puff up, open up the oven door ever so slightly with a wooden spoon and continue baking for another 30 minutes until they're golden. And they should come out looking like this. Once they've cooled, now we're ready to slice open the tops and get it ready for our filling. Pastry cream out of the fridge and pop it into a bowl and whisk it until it's nice and smooth. Get your pre-chilled bowl out of the freezer and some cold heavy cream, and we're going to whip this until it becomes nice and stiff. cream's whipped, you want to put it into your pastry cream and fold it gently until it's combined. Transfer your light pastry cream into a piping bag and you're ready to pipe. Cut up your strawberries and half them, and then start placing them on top of the pastry cream. You should only need 3 per little show. Now we're going to make our Chantilly cream. Grab a pre-chilled bowl, add your heavy cream in and start to whip. As it starts to get a little bit thicker, add in your icing sugar and continue to beat until it's completely thick. Transfer your Chantilly cream to a piping bag. I'm using a star tip on my piping bag. It's a 1M from Wilton, or you can use whatever shape you like. Twist the bag at the top and start piping on top of the strawberries. Once you've piped, add your little lids back on top and you're ready to dust them with icing sugar. And you're done. These are little gourmet delights. They're absolutely light, fluffy and delicious, and I hope you enjoy them. Happy baking! Okay, now we're going to make our vanilla mousseline cream. We're going to need milk, sugar, egg yolk, vanilla bean, cornstarch and butter. First up, we're going to split our vanilla bean and de-seed it and pop that into our pot with the pod. Once that's done, we're going to pour our milk in and take it over to the stove to simmer. Once it's simmered, we want to take it off the stove and leave that to steep for 15 minutes. In the meantime, get your egg yolk, sugar and whisk together until it's a nice pale colour. Add in your cornstarch and mix well. After 15 minutes of the vanilla steeping, take out the vanilla pod and then bring the milk mixture back to a simmer. Once your milk is simmering, pour a third of that mix over your egg yolk mixture and temper the yolks. Blend well. Once that's all blended, pour that back into your pot and bring it to a simmer until it starts to thicken. Once it starts to thicken, take it off the heat and set it aside to cool. Once your cream is slightly cooled, you want to add in only half of your butter. Mix that well and then cover it with cling wrap and set it aside. Now we're going to prepare our puff pastry. I'm using a silicone mat here as well as baking paper as an extra added layer. I'm just using butter to stick the baking paper down to my silicone sheet. And I'm just measuring it out because the silicone sheets are a little bit big. Now it's time to make the puff pastry. Dust your surface with some flour and roll out your puff pastry as thin as you can. Try and make it the same size as your baking tray. Trim any excess puff pastry that hangs over the edge of the baking tray and put another silicone mat or perhaps a wire rack on top to put some weight on so the puff pastry doesn't puff up so much. Pop it into the oven for roughly around 15 minutes until golden. Once it's cooked and cooled, dust some icing sugar over your puff pastry. What we want to do here is pop it into the oven to caramelize. This will happen quite quickly. And as you can see here, it's starting to caramelize and you can see that browning there on the left hand side. As soon as it all turns brown, you want to take it out of the oven and let it cool. And this is what your caramelized puff pastry should look like. Once it's cooled, you can then start slicing it out. Now we're ready to finish off our cream. Blend until it all starts to come together. Our next step is to add in the rest of the butter. This butter should have been sitting at room temperature for the entire time. Add it in bit by bit and it will slowly start to come together, very similar to a buttercream. Once it's all come together, transfer it into a piping bag and you're ready to start putting together your pastries. Pipe your cream onto the base. Add your raspberries, 3 on each side. And then once you've done, put your next layer on top and pipe some more cream. Add your raspberries again. Then add the top. Continue that for the rest of the pastries. Dust the top with icing sugar however you please. I've just used a knife here just to blank out the middle space. And you're done. You're ready to enjoy some yummy goodness. Let me know if you try it in the comments field below and happy baking!